Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl Ilov, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Part of the spirit of the FemiNinja is living well and looking good. A vital component of living well and looking good is having a strong, healthy body. And muscles are a must because there is nothing more appealing than the look of sleek, toned muscles at every stage of life. But even more important than the way a strong body looks is the way a strong body feels. Strength feels healthy, confident, resilient, and youthful. And strength is imperative for healthy function and for the health of our tissues. And there are so many ways in which strong muscles are vital to our health and our wellness. As I said in my previous episode, Fit Tips for Life, fitness isn't a size or a number. It's not how you look, but how you feel. And strength is a huge part of feeling like you can take on the world and feel good about wearing sleeveless tops at the same time. But what do you do if you absolutely hate the thought of strength training, or if you are like me, who just doesn't like the thought of going to the gym? Just the thought of going to a gym makes me break out in hives. It's something that just never appealed to me and never did resonate with me. I found a way to strengthen and tone my muscles in the privacy of my own home, and you can do it too. I'm going to share some of these techniques with you a little bit later on, but before I do, I just want to address again why strengthening and strength training is so incredibly important to us, especially as women. First of all, strong muscles increase our metabolism and help us burn more calories. That in itself should be enough to make us want to just grab a couple of weights and get started. But even more importantly than that is strong muscles lead to strong bones. When we put a healthy load of stress on our muscles, we also put a healthy stress on our bones at the same time. It's a phenomenon called Wolff's Law, that actually when you stress a bone, you can change the shape of the bone and you also change the internal structure of the bone itself, the matrix, the cellular matrix on the inside of the bones. So by strengthening our muscles and straining in a healthy way, in a good way, our bones, we're actually stimulating the production of new cells inside the tissue of our bones. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? I mean, I'm a real geek about physiology, and I think it's important to be able to share these little nuggets with you and these tidbits so you know on a cellular level or a deeper level of why these things are important and how our bodies do work, because our bodies are truly just a miracle of nature, and if we treat our bodies well, they'll treat us well in return. So with strengthening our bones and this wonderful miracle Wolff's Law, we can, through strength training, not only keep our muscles and our bones strong, we can prevent the decrease in bone density that sometimes does happen, especially in postmenopausal women, that leads to something called osteopenia, which is a decreased bone density, but can be a precursor to osteoporosis. It's something that I referred to back in my previous episode, Fit Tips for Life, and told the story about one of my clients who had osteopenia, and eventually she progressed to osteoporosis, and she was absolutely devastated. I suggested and recommended that she start doing some weight training at a senior center, and she looked at me like I had lost my mind, but she eventually did do it, and in 6 months of strength training, she actually reversed her osteoporosis and went back to osteopenia, so she was off the medication. So that's another reason why strength training is so important. And I even think back on episode 5 when I told the story about Mary Pat, my previous best friend forever, who I had to break up with after 30 years. And when she slipped on the ice and fell and broke her arm. And I can't help but wonder if she had been doing some upper extremity strengthening, some easy strength training, that maybe she could have prevented that fracture. But of course, we never know. But what do you do if you hate to go to the gym? Just do it at home. And I'm going to give you those tips now. The first thing that we're going to do is concentrate on our upper body, on our arms, our shoulders, and our upper back. And I want to remind you, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, but one of the key things that you need to remember when you're starting a program is to be gentle with yourself. So you don't want to beat yourself up. You don't want to set your goals so high or start at a level that you're going to actually either defeat yourself or get discouraged or even worse, get injured. So I always recommend to my clients to start with very light weights. And they might seem ridiculously light, but honestly, I never ever use more than 5-pound weights for myself. Every now and again, if I'm feeling really sassy, I'll get out my 10-pound weights, but it's just really not necessary if you're doing the movements correctly and with the kind of focus and attention that I'm going to share with you, and you apply that to each and every movement. It really doesn't take a lot of weights or a lot of repetitions, which is another reason why it works so well for people who are not a huge fan of going to the gym or exercising. It's a way of really incorporating the mind-body connection and really activating new pathways, activating your brain in a way that you're getting even more bang for your buck out of every single thing that you do. So I really recommend starting with light weights. Once again, if you're brand new to this, I would recommend 2-pound weights. And, some of you might poo-poo, well, 2-pound weights aren't going to do anything. Oh, yes, they will if you do it with the kind of focus and attention that I'm going to teach you how to use. So start with the 2-pound weights. And as you get stronger, you can always increase to either 5-pound weights. And, eventually, if you want to work up to higher than that, that's fine, as long as you're being very, very mindful of the movements that you're doing and you're really paying attention to your shoulder joints and even your postural alignment as you're doing the movements, because that is going to be crucial. It's when we forget about our alignment and we just start mindlessly doing the movement that we can actually injure our shoulders, and we're really not doing our upper back any benefit either. So it's very, very important to pay attention to that. So start just by sitting on the very edge of a firm chair, a dining room chair. Something can have a little bit of cushion, but not too much, because you don't want to be sinking down into the chair. You really want your body to be fully engaged in what you're doing. Scoot forward, and you want your feet flat on the floor, and you want your sit bones on the very edge of the chair. So you're making a 90-degree angle from your hips to your knees and your knees to the floor. And as I said, your feet are firmly on the floor, so you're really grounded. And take a moment before you even pick up your weights to notice your postural alignment. Are you slouching? Is your spine a little bit rounded? And then check again, maybe, are you arching? Is your back a little bit too arched? Are you feeling short and tight in your low back? So you might want to shift your weight and take a moment to adjust to feel when you finally get that balance where your head is perfectly balanced over your spine so you're not straining anywhere. It's very important to only be working the muscles that you want to work. Your posture and your spine and the supporting muscles will automatically kick in for you. So now pick up your weights and sit with holding your weights in your hands, in the palms of your hand, and have your palms facing forward. Take a moment to imagine the line of your biceps. You don't have to know anatomy, but you know what your biceps, roughly where they are, in the upper part of your arm from the inner edge of your elbow up to your shoulder, and just imagine the length of that muscle and what it looks like. Again, you don't have to be anatomically correct, but you know that just activating that muscle is going to help bend your elbow up. And then as you straighten your elbow, your bicep is going to work against gravity, which is actually where a lot of the power and endurance of the muscle comes from, is the working against gravity. So again, take a moment just to imagine that line of the pull of the muscle, and then very slowly bend your elbow so you do your one bicep curl, and then very, very slowly Go back to the return position. And again, do 10 repetitions very, very slowly. And the key here is to move slowly and with mindfulness. So you're really paying attention to the movement, going very, very slowly. Your wrist is not bending and straightening. Your wrist is staying in the same position. So it's just that one arm. And I really prefer doing one arm at a time, especially when you're new to this, because there's a tendency if we do both at the same time to kind of start lurching and throwing our back and our whole body backwards. And I don't want that. I want you to really be careful about doing the exercise and the movement with great precision and accuracy. If you've ever taken Pilates classes or a Pilates private especially, you'd get more attention with that. It's one of the principles of Pilates of moving slowly, with precision, and with great control with every single movement that you make, which is why you really don't have to do a lot of repetitions. Just a few repetitions doing them properly is going to give you a whole lot more bang for your buck and a lot of benefit, even more than if you were doing, let's say, 50 repetitions quickly or mindlessly without paying attention to what you were doing. So again, it's embodying that mind-body connection. And there's another reason for going slowly, and this is really cool. This is another one of those little physiological wonders of our body and of nature. And that is when you move slowly, you actually fire up a lot more what we call motor units, which are the individual muscle fibers and the little microscopic individual nerve endings that innervate and activate that particular muscle fiber. So you're actually recruiting a lot more muscle fiber, muscle tissue, as well as nerve tissue, and result is a lot more power, a lot more strength, a lot more toning, and much better results for your effort. And I think that's really good as somebody who is a physical therapist who's not quite so fond of exercise and thinks that chocolate is food. Once you've done your bicep curls on both sides, now it's time to focus on our triceps, the muscles on the back of our upper arms. And you know the ones I'm talking about. We all remember when we were kids in school and our teacher would erase the board, and long after she was done erasing, that area of her arm would still be jiggling for what seemed like a very long time. And it was one of those things like a train wreck. You didn't want to look, but you just couldn't help yourself because it was just fascinating. As a kid, you're just wondering, oh my gosh, how in the world does something like that happen? And then all of a sudden you find yourself as an adult and you realize how it does happen. And it can happen awfully fast, mostly because we really don't use the triceps as much as we do our biceps, because during our daily activities, we're either lifting things or pulling things, and everything we do is kind of in front of us. So we don't have the opportunity to really fully engage and lengthen and strengthen our triceps during our functional activities. So we need to give them a little bit of extra love, a little bit of extra TLC and special attention. You can strengthen your triceps by having your arm, your elbow bent with your elbow toward the ceiling and your hand at the back of your head, and then just reaching up to straighten and bend your arm in that position. However, I'm not a huge fan of strengthening your triceps that way, because when you're doing that kind of overhead type of reach in that position, it's really easy to strain your upper trapezius muscles, strain your neck, and it's just not worth the risk. So what I prefer doing is, once again, sitting on the edge of a very firm chair with your feet flat on the floor. And let's just start with the right arm. Take your right arm and extend it directly out straight from your shoulder joint. So it'd be almost as if you were punching somebody that was standing in front of you. Again, here comes that little ninja analogy. So your palm would be facing inward. Bend your elbow now, and it's almost as if you would be talking on a telephone. So keeping your elbow in line with your shoulder, very slowly extend your arm out and then back in. I like to place my other hand, so this would be my left hand, under the soft tissue of the tricep, the upper arm, as I'm extending my arm out, as I'm bending and straightening my elbow, because that gives it just a little bit of support, and it also gives me that tactile information. I could feel the muscle contracting and relaxing and working underneath my hand. So you're not squeezing really hard, you're just supporting it, and you can actually feel the action of the muscle, and that's really, really nice. Feel it engaging from an internal sense as well as from an external sense too. You might be surprised how tired your triceps get, because that is a muscle that we really don't work very often during our daily activities. And later on, I'm going to give you another exercise that's really functional for your triceps. Before we continue, I do want to remind you that these are just suggestions. These are just things that you can play with to see if it works for you, because it might not. And I really encourage you to pay attention to how you're feeling as you're doing the exercises, what you're noticing, what you feel working. If you're feeling any abnormal strain or discomfort, then stop immediately. But it's really to train your acuity. It's to train your awareness of the sensations of your body, as well as strengthening, because it does go hand in hand. And again, when you use that amount of awareness and attention, you're going to get so much more, not only out of your strengthening program, but you'll be learning a new skill of how to pay attention to the sensations in your body and how to be able to respond to them. It's a valuable life skill, and one that I wished I had before I had my back injury, because if I had paid more attention to the signals that my body was sending to me, I could have responded to it, and I really do believe that I could have saved myself 2.5 long, horrible years of pain and misery. So it is something that we're not used to, I don't think, in this society. We don't pay attention to how we're really feeling, both physically, from a sensory standpoint, emotionally, psychologically, and we just kind of tune things out because we're so bombarded with information, 24/7 news cycle. We've got our computers, our cell phones, and it's like we're always on. So we need to be able to stop and really pay attention to ourselves, how we move and what we're doing throughout the day. It really does make a difference. So having said that, we already now have our bicep curls. You've got your tricep extensions. And now we're going to move on to something that I lovingly refer to as the goalpost. It's kind of like a simulated lats pull down at the gym, but you're doing it just with light weights and just gravity as your resistance. Before you start this exercise, you might want to do it in front of a mirror just so you can check your positioning. You will start this sitting in a chair just like you did the other two exercises, but if you need to stand up so you can find a mirror that has enough space for you to look at your positioning of your arms, that's fine. You can start that way until you get comfortable with what you're doing. So looking in the mirror, you're going to bring your arms out to a position where you're making like a goalpost, a 90-degree angle of your elbows and your hands to the rest of your body. You want to make sure that your elbows are in line with your shoulders so they're not rolling forward. And you might find this a little bit more challenging than you think it should be, because a lot of us are very tight across the front of our chest because of being on the computer for all of the things that we do in the forward position, all of the things, even cooking, cleaning, everything is front. So our chest really does have a tendency to get tight. So as you start to open your elbows up and you're checking your position, make sure the palms of your hands are facing the mirror too. So even just holding this position where your elbows are equal, in line, straight across your shoulder joints, and your two arms are perpendicular to the floor and perpendicular to your upper arms, and your palms are facing the mirror. And you might be thinking, wow, this really is a lot of work just to hold my arms in this position. And yes, you're right. It is. You're working a lot of different muscle groups, and you're working them in a way that you typically don't work them. And you're also going to be getting the muscles of your upper back as well. So some postural muscles here too, which you're getting those postural muscles anyway just by sitting on the edge of a chair, even though you may not realize it. But that's another benefit of doing these simple exercises. You're engaging a lot of different muscles and a lot of body systems at the same time. Again, more bang for your buck, which is why you don't have to do as many of them or a lot of repetitions or a lot of heavy weight. Now, speaking of weights, we might want to try the first couple of repetitions without the 2-pound weights, because you might be surprised how strenuous this really is. So with your arms in that beginning position of your goalpost, you're going to slowly straighten your elbows just about part way to maybe making a 45-degree angle. So the angle of your arms, instead of being 90 degrees, will go to 45 degrees. So you slowly raise your arms up, and and your hands will be going directly toward the ceiling. So you don't have your arms coming in or your hands coming in over above your head, the center of your body. You're going straight up in a straight line toward the ceiling to about a 45-degree angle. And then imagine somebody has their hands gently underneath your elbow, giving you gentle resistance. And as you start to bend your elbows back to the starting position, that person is giving you that gentle resistance that you have to resist and press against. So continue very slowly, really, really paying attention to the quality of your movement and going slow enough that you can really pay attention to the sensations of the movement and how your body is reacting to it. And you might be surprised. You might not even be able to get to 10 repetitions going that slowly because these muscle groups are not used to working together. So if this does feel like it's easy for you, then by all means, go ahead, take a moment to just, hit the refresh button and then pick up your 2-pound weights and go ahead and try it with the weights. Again, keep checking yourself though in the mirror to make sure that your positioning is still spot on, because that is very, very important. So now, just to recap, we've done bicep curls, we've done tricep extensions, and we've done our goal post. And there are quite a few muscle groups. I'm not even going to start naming those with the goal post. Now we're going to just ratchet it up a little bit more by engaging our abdominal muscles as we're doing the exercises. So once again, sit on the very edge of the chair so you can feel your sit bones and your feet are flat on the floor, and breathe in. And as you breathe out, just gently tighten your lower abdominal muscles. Don't change the position of your spine or your pelvis, but just feel a gentle tightening deep low in your abdomen, and add that little bit of abdominal engagement when you're doing your arm exercises. And it's going to take it just to another level. Now, we're going to add one more thing, is once you get comfortable with these exercises and you can start to feel your abdominals working a little bit, instead of sitting on the edge of a chair, you can do all of these exercises while sitting on an exercise ball, one of those large fit balls or Swiss balls. There's a lot of different names for them. Just make sure that you are comfortable sitting on a ball in the first place, that you feel safe, and that you have the right size. So you might have to hire a physical therapist or maybe a Pilates instructor or a personal trainer or somebody who's very familiar with the exercise balls, so they could make sure that you do have the right size and that you are being safe, because safety first. But now you've just taken those simple little exercises and you've added a lot more components to them by sitting on the ball. Even more abdominal work, you're getting deeper core muscular work, you're adding a component of balance, flexibility, and even postural alignment. So all of these things are working together, and that's why I love it. It's because you're getting so many things in one fell swoop. And even if you do go to the gym and you like going to the gym, you can add these exercises to your routine and you can get more toning, sculpting even of your muscles than you would if you're just going to the gym 3 times a week, because it's not what you do at the gym 3 times a week as much as it is what you're doing in between those visits to the gym that really add up and really make a difference to your general health, well-being, fitness, flexibility. And again, it's not about how you look, it's about how you feel. And once you feel better and move better, you start to look better and you develop this incredibly positive cycle of health, wellness, fitness, and movement in your life. And now I just want to add one last exercise, and that is, I promised you earlier I would give you a functional exercise that you can do for your tricep muscles. So this would be in weight bearing of your upper arms. Actually, I'm going to add 2 that you can start to play around with. And the first one is quite simply chair push-ups. So if you're sitting in a chair that has armrests, again, I really prefer that firm chair like a dining room chair. You can sit just a little bit forward on your chair, not quite as much that your sit bones are at the very edge, but put your arms on the armrests and gently begin to push down against the chair. You don't have to necessarily lift yourself up off of the chair, but just start to really press down as firmly as you can and feel what happens in the muscles of your arms and the muscles of your upper back as you press down. And then you can just release for a moment and then try it again. And continue to do this nice slow press of your arms into the armrests of the chair, again feeling what's happening in the rest of your body, including your torso, and just hold that for a few seconds and then release. And continue to do this until eventually you're able to start to lift your bottom out of the chair. I don't mean this is going to happen in one day, but it's something that you can work toward, and it really does wonders for not only your upper arms, but for your upper back muscles and your torso and your core strength as well. Just make sure that as you're pressing down, that you're really pressing your shoulder blades down against your back as well. So you don't want to push against the chair and have your shoulder blades slide up, because then you're going to lose all of the power that you're trying to create in that press down. Besides, if you can really keep your shoulder blades sliding down on your upper back, then you're really improving your postural alignment as well and giving yourself that strength in the upper body that a lot of us don't have and that we desperately need. And the next suggestion that I'm going to make for strengthening, functional strengthening, is to get down on the floor in what we call the quadruped position, which is hands and knees. And that might kind of sound a little bit unappealing to you at first, and it does take a little bit of getting used to. You might want to put some pads underneath your knees to make them more comfortable. The important thing to remember is to make sure that your hands are directly underneath your shoulders. You don't want them to be too far in front of your shoulders or too far out to the side. You really want to make that direct line from the joint of your shoulder all the way through the line of your arm into your hands to the floor. So just all you have to do is just gently press against the floor as if you were pushing the floor away from yourself. And again, feel what's happening in between your shoulder blades as well as your arms. And you want to be really careful that you're not sinking into your upper back, kind of like that cat-cow position that they'll teach you sometimes for stretching. You just really want to push away as firmly as you can. Now, if this puts too much pressure on your wrists, what you can do is just feel the tips of your fingers pressing into the floor a little bit more firmly, and that will help activate your hand muscles so all the pressure isn't going into your wrists. The other thing you can do, and I really like this as the little ninja in me, is to make a fist. So instead of having your hands flat against the floor, you can make fists and use that fist position to press against the floor. This will really strengthen your forearms and protect your wrist joints at the same time. Now, if this is too challenging for you, and it might be because a lot of people can't put that much weight on their arms, you can modify this by doing wall push-ups, and that might actually really be a good way to start. So just stand facing a wall and do the same thing as if your hands are against the wall, and just start pushing your hands away. So you can do this in a way that it is an isometric contraction, or you can start to gently bend your elbows and straighten your elbows so you truly are doing wall push-ups. The important thing to remember, and I really can't emphasize this enough, is to be gentle with yourself, be very aware of what you're doing, really engage your mind and your attention into everything that you're doing. And if you already do have any kind of injury or weakness or pre-existing condition, or maybe you already do have osteopenia or osteoporosis, do not do this alone. You really need to consult with your healthcare provider and see what they would recommend for you. And once again, I just wanted to remind you that these are just some ideas, some things that you can play with. But the important thing to remember is that strength training really is a vital part of your health, wellness, and vitality. And a strength training program is essential for your wellness and your fitness. And strong muscles improve your level of function, increase your energy, endurance, and metabolism. But the other thing I want you to remember is that strength goes beyond just the physical aspect of it. Strength is more than having a strong body. It's about having a strong and powerful mind, a resilient spirit, and a staunch belief system of who you are, what you need, and how to get it. I really do believe in my heart that all of us are a lot stronger than we think we are. And we just have to find a way to tap into that strength. I have to tell you, some of the strongest people that I know or that I've met in my life are people who have a hard time even just getting out of bed in the morning, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, psychological, but they do find a way to do it. And some of the most resilient people that I know are the ones who actually are confined to a wheelchair. So strength, resilience, confidence goes way beyond just the physical. It's about being strong in body, mind, and spirit. And if you can strengthen your body in any way, even a very small way, it has an incredible impact, mind and spirit as well. And that's one of the things that we worked on quite a bit when I was in my martial arts training, is you're not just training your body, you are training your mind, your spirit, and really growing your spirit so that you can handle anything that comes at you. So having said all that, continue to look for your strength, find your strength, and work on it. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And I would, as always, love to hear from you. So please feel free to drop me an email at info@CherylIlov.com. And make sure you listen next time. In my next episode, we will be addressing flexibility. Because if you can't bend your knees, you can't do squat. And remember, the ability to do everything that you want to do and love to do with grace, strength, and confidence is the way of the FemiNinja. So keep moving, stay strong, and make sure you tune in next time. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.